Hey, I'm Jacquire King, and welcome to my studio in Franklin, Tennessee. We're here to check out Universal Audio's modeling microphones. I'm excited to share with you that there are 3 new microphones in the standard line that use the Hemisphere technology. We have the Sphere DLX and LX here as well to use with the Sphere technology. Partnered with the standard line of microphones and its Hemisphere technology, gives you an amazing mic locker that you can make really world-class sounding records with. We prepared 4 genres of music so we can demonstrate this technology to you with drums and different drum miking techniques, as well as some additional instrumentation. I want to introduce you to my studio team. Over here, we have Sam Horn.
Hey.
This is Dawson March.
What's up?
And this is Dawson Gnewikow.
Hey guys.
Goes by DG. The 4 of us have put together the 4 different genres of music. So these guys have been the composers and co-producers with me, and they're going to also be performing some instrument overdubs. We've got our friend Logan Todd here today, session drummer, who's going to help us cut drums to these 4 compositions. So let's get started. So here's Logan Todd. Thank you for being here today, buddy.
Thanks for having me, man.
Of course.
Happy to be here.
So Logan's going to help us record on all 4 tunes, and we've set up for a jazz song first. So, Logan, can you tell us a little bit about the setup with this drum kit?
Yeah, so this is a 59 Gretsch kit that you've graciously let me use today. They sound amazing, and for anything jazz, you typically have a higher tuning. So we got these tuned up pretty high, the toms, and then the snares wide open as well. And then we decided to go no port on the front head to give it that more sort of warm, round sound, with a little muffling, obviously, just to get rid of some of that overtone. But nothing in the shell.
Nothing in the shell, yeah. We've got these drums set up very open and jazz-like. And yeah, there is nothing inside the kick drum, so we've put a little bit of cushion against the front of it to kind of rein in the resonance.
Yep.
So I just want to show you a little trick here with the placement of the SD5. So Logan, if you would just hit the kick drum, I'm gonna find the sweet spot, if you will, and then I'll explain what's going on. Yeah, so kick drums, please. Thanks. Okay, so what I'm doing there, because I don't have an opening in the kick drum, I'm looking for a spot that is the most transparent to listen into the drum. So it's like dropping a stone in water, it creates rings. And so the same thing is happening on this closed head. It has, where it's resonant. So I'm just feeling for a spot where the head is moving the least. And that gives me a good opportunity to get away from those resonant frequencies and listen into the drum a little bit more. It's a little bit more of a window, transparent spot into the drum. That's why the SD5 is placed where it is on this particular drum. And also having the dampening on the front is minimizing and calming down some of that, those waveforms, resonant sort of circles, and because it's just moving the whole time. So that's a reason that's placed there. Other things of note, it's like we're going for a mono overhead so that our core sound is the Sphere LX, the SD5, and then on the snare drum we have the SD3. Miking of the snare drum is a pretty typical position. I like to have it just over the drum a little bit, miking the snare. So I'm getting a little bit of the shell, but a lot of attack, pointing towards the area of where the stick or the brush is going to be playing the drum, and back a little bit just to kind of get a little bit of openness, and then moving on to sort of fill out the stereo field. We've got the SP1s on the hi-hat and ride, and then lastly we have the SD7 on the floor tom. Now, the other thing that I want to point out about the way that I've mic'd the kit, especially with mono overhead and the SP1s, is you can kind of see that the SP1s are pointing into the kit a little bit, so I'm picking up a little bit of a whole sound there. The floor tom mic is kind of, instead of pointing down deep into the drum and listening to just the inner shell, like perhaps the way you might consider the kick drum is here. I also don't have these microphones, the SD7 and the SD3, I don't have them super close to the head because I'm trying to create a more whole sound, even though we've got all of these microphones to fill in. Last thing I want to talk about is the room mic, and how I find a place for that is I'll just kind of walk around the room while Logan plays, and I'll find a spot that feels balanced and sympathetic in terms of like what the room tone I want to add into the close mics is. One final note while we're talking about the room mic is that in checking the polarity of all these microphones, I would normally start with the kick drum and then compare the kick drum with the overhead, and then the kick drum with the snare, kick drum with the room. And then once I figured out all of my choices, only playing the kick drum, then I would record all the microphones and then just sort of visually check that all of the amplitude started positively. The low end capture is probably the most important thing, and as you get up into the higher frequencies, the mid-range, the polarity and the phase in the room starts changing, and the way that all this microphone positions are. So you're going to get cancellation. My goal is to get as minimal cancellation as possible in the low frequencies. So he's got the kit set up. I've placed the microphones. I'm going to go in the control room now and start to dial things in. Hey, Logan, can we play from the top? Okay, hang on one second for me. So I just wanted to go back to the core microphones and now hear it with a composition and make sure, especially with that overhead, because it's such a significant contributor to the overall drum sound, that I just wanted to double check my choice of the 47. Still on board with it. So now I'll get Logan to play some more, and I'll add back in the other mics and sort of start to investigate the other choices. Hey brother, we'll start from the top again, and I'll let it play a little bit longer. I just wanted to stop and explain one thing.
Okay.
Sounded really beautiful, man. So I just kind of reviewed my choices. Something I did early on when I was on the kick drum is there's a proximity feature. So basically what I ended up doing is I moved the microphone in towards the source a little bit more. Probably almost, we've got a closed head on the front, and I'm not sure how much this value is in terms of moving it forward, but it's already pretty close to the head. So it's like almost as if I was able to move the microphone sort of slightly inside, just in terms of proximity and the way that it helps the low end. And the reason I did that is I just kind of wanted a little bit more low end punch and focus. You know, having the microphone back from the drum, you're getting more of the resonant properties of the shell and the head. So, which it sounds very nice, but just scooting it in a little bit with this proximity seemed to be a nice change. So another thing that I want to explain is that the way that I have this set up is we're using the API microphone pre's in the unison slot. So that sound is being committed to the recording. So, because in Luna, you can put in record effects, which are committed sounds. And that's normally how I like to work. But for, for my benefit in demonstrating this to you, and also so your benefit on the back end, when these sessions are available for you to play with, the mic modeling, Hemisphere and Sphere plugins are in the monitor, so that so they can be changed post-recording. Because if I put them in the record effects, then that choice is the choice, and sort of we have to go on and live with that. That's my preference, because in terms of recording, and then I've got the vision strip after that. So any compression, EQ, any of those types of filter, high pass, low pass filter, any of that kind of stuff that I do is also something that is not baked into the recording and you can play with. Let's see if we can make a pass from the top.
Okay.
And kind of evaluate where we're at. That was a killer take. Yeah, come in and let's give it a listen.
All right.
Sounds pretty fabulous.
Thanks, man.
So for the kick, which is the SD5, used a 12A.
Sweet.
And then the snare drum is just a stock 57.
Yep.
I was considering the 545.
Is that like
That's the original version of 57. Okay. That's like what came first. It just was a little too forward sounding.
Okay,
yeah.
So that one's a little more aggressive than just like your standard 57.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. And then on the overhead, we went with a 47.
Can't go wrong there.
No. And this is something we were talking about a little bit on the side. The 84s, the SP1s, the pencil condensers that are over the hi-hat and ride. Mm-hmm. So we've gone with the 84s, but the part we were talking about is sort of on the vision strip. I filtered off as much as I could with the high pass. So this is up to 600, but then I also took 2 dB off at 400 with this shelf EQ. So I'm just trying to dump off as much low end as possible out of those mics, because I really just want them for that high frequency spread and detail. But you don't want to go much higher than that in terms of roll off, because then you start to lose the tonality and personality of the cymbal, and you only get that really
just the air.
Yeah, the bright washy stuff. And then carrying on from there, the floor tom ended up going with the original 421.
Okay.
It just seemed it's kind of like the inverse of the snare drum choice.
Yeah.
This was a little bit brighter and more forward. And given that you're just hitting it with a brush, it's not like super loud on the mic, but it was just adding a nice texture
to like the whole kit.
The whole thing.
Especially since you're using one that's a little more forward with us. We're not putting as much transient pressure on that. either.
Exactly. But so let me just quickly show you the difference here with just changing this one mic, which is really mostly about the spill and the leakage. It's not, you know, where you're going to hear the most sound change is probably in the snare.
Okay.
But then you can also kind of hear it a little bit in the depth of the room.
Okay.
So the snare detail kind of comes up a little bit, and there's like the depth of the room just feels a little bit more open and
just
airy.
a little brighter, just a little.
Absolutely. Which makes me think of a point that I kind of want to share is that in first experimenting and kind of getting familiar with the hemisphere and the sphere technology, it's like if you're just listening to one microphone singular and you're going through the different emulations, there is some measure of detail and sound you can perceive and change, and they do feel very true to what they're emulating. But where for me, so I was a little bit like at first I wasn't quite as sure, but where it's really proven to be the accuracy and how useful this stuff is, in that when you're combining the mics, you can hear really subtle differences like this as it contributes to the whole. Like singularly on its own, like, well, let's just solo up the floor tom, right? There's a very slight change, but it doesn't contribute to it adds up. Yeah, the sauce, the way it adds up. So I think that's kind of a cool thing that I've learned after getting a little bit more into it. You know, like how powerful, it'll be. So, like another thing that I noticed, the kick drum is such a foundational part of the sound of any recording, because then that's what you build the rest of everything. That's the foundation. So the bass, and so you change that, you change everything. Yeah. And just to demonstrate that, we'll just change the kick drum sound.
It's like just nice, and
the 12 just sits around the bass really nice, and it also is that I hear more depth in the space and around the whole drum sound. So yeah, but there again, on its own, if we were listening to it on its own. Where I perceive the most difference on the individual source is in the low end. Yeah. Like kind of where it accentuates, it kind of like moves up and down frequency-wise a little bit.
Yeah, as far as what's getting the bump from mic to mic.
Exactly. But I don't perceive as much change in the depth of the space. Yeah. Or the overall sort of like attack of the drum. So I think it's super cool. Listen, great job. All right, well now it's time to do the piano overdub for the tune we just cut, because it's mostly Dawson's song. We've done a piano miking video in the past, but we're going to do this a little bit differently. We're going to mic it a little bit further away, so we have just a little bit more of an ambient open sound. Yep. And we're doing the C section.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just to give us a different palette of sound and a little bit of a departure sonically for that section.
Yeah, and I think that kind of having the microphones a little bit further away from the piano will open this section up nicely, because the piano that's in there right now is like this really intimate kind of feeling piano, so it'd be cool to open it up in that section.
Why don't you sit in here and play? Yeah. Let me just do a little listening real quick. So we'll start there. Let's just have you play a little bit in isolation so I can just kind of listen to some different mic modeling choices.
Cool.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in between the LD67 and the LD12 here.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
let's have you play. Make sure I got a good level. Your headphones are good, and then I'll just kind of be switching between a couple of these different choices and see what is the preferred.
Yeah, sounds great.
Preferred one. Okay, check this out. That's sounding pretty great.
Cool.
Yeah, so I've landed on using the LD67s.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that choice.
Yeah, so it was kind of between that and the LD12s. Everything else kind of just took it to a different place. Some of it was cloudy or just kind of disconnected feeling. So I want to go one more time because I was just starting to play with the proximity effect.
Cool.
But I'm wondering, I just want to move them away a little bit and just sort of see what
Gotcha.
that feels like. Yeah, I like the mics moved away a little bit with the proximity effect, but me being old school mic placement guy, I'm gonna actually come in and try to replicate that move.
Yeah, cool.
So that I'm just using the plugin as a kind of its stock null proximity. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna come in there real quick.
Makes sense.
It's like such a great experimentation tool.
Yeah. So this is your way of almost testing out like how much of a move is
Yeah.
this distance, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like I have a relatively good idea from just experience, but let's see. Yeah, I think I did it. I think I did okay.
Cool.
I don't really feel like I need to do a lot of like EQ or processing. I mean, the mic choice and the placement's doing majority of the work.
That's all you need.
Yeah, the gain's good. Let's make one and see how we feel.
All right.
I think it sounds great, man.
Okay, cool.
If it feels good, it is good, right?
Ah, very true.
Come on in here.
All right. So you chose the 67.
Yeah, the close second was the the LD12. 251 was interesting. The rest of them, especially like the 87, just felt a little cloudy. Yeah, just
Cool.
have a play around.
See, I feel like the 67 has like the perfect balance. Like I love certain things about the 12, I love certain things with the 251, but there's things I don't like about it. Whereas the 67, there's nothing I don't like about it.
Exactly.
You know, which
to
I think
me,
is really nice.
the 67 feels like it's really warm in the lower mid-range, but doesn't cloud the bass.
Yeah.
The 12 feels like it muddies the bottom a little bit. Well, listen to the performance all the way down in
Cool.
here and just make sure we're good.